Welcome to episode 594 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Ian Hilton, and the Xavi era is officially over. Well, over once today's match with Sevilla had ended, so not technically over, but he'd already been sacked, so a weird situation there, of course. And I'm going to try my best to keep the big report card and referendum about Xavi's time in charge for a podcast later on down the road, whether this week or next week or some other time. So this will hopefully largely just be about the 5 headlines today. Thanks as always to my patrons for keeping these shows around, and thanks to everybody who's part of the community on social media, who follow the podcast, or subscribes on the YouTube channel. And as a little plug, subscribing anywhere means you won't miss the big Academy update that I am currently working on. But let's finish this season as well as we can, the 5 headlines from Barcelona's 2-1 win over Sevilla. Headline 1 is Xavi's Swan song. Of course, I know I'm going to talk about him being sacked and all that coming up, and Hansi Flick and whoever might else be new face around the club in the coming weeks. But as far as Xavi saying goodbye, well, he said goodbye with arguably the most impactful player of this season, starting and not having Araujo or Rafinha involved, which is interesting and question marks to note. But I did have to lull quite a bit at Lamine Yamal continuing to start. Once second place was already wrapped up and you didn't need to play both that 16-year-old in Lamine Yamal or the 17-year-old in Pau Cubarsí, but I guess Xavi wanted a result and felt like he had to. Second minute, an easy press for Barca and a turnover. Clearly, Sevilla's players were rattled a little bit with the fans not being in the stands until the 10th minute, or at least the ones that do a lot of the yelling and screaming and the drums and all that stuff. So Barca in the early going felt like they had a lot more energy than Sevilla did. Pedri got to the end line. He was just over the line with the ball, though, but Lamine Yamal's shot was blocked anyway. But still, Barca on the press was pretty dangerous. 6th minute, nice Christensen through ball, but Fermin's touch let him down. But Sevilla was already showing Fermin that there would be space for him in behind if he could find those angles. 10th minute, the Sevilla supporters finally started to show up behind the goal, entering the chance of having the Sevilla board resign. And you don't really hear that same thing at Barcelona. I know it's a cultural thing, but the motion of censures for Barca are usually much more diplomatic. And of course, there is some chanting and protests that you will hear occasionally that have been heard over time. But in all the time I've been covering Barcelona, I don't know the last time that you really heard a revolt like this, even at the worst time for Bartomeu, which actually was during the pandemic, so maybe we would have seen something like that during the pandemic with Bartomeu. But usually because there's a president and a board, the socios know that they will eventually have a say in the president coming or going or changes that need to happen at the club, at least from the top down. Headline 2 is nice little team goal. In the 15th minute, Barca get on the board first, and I did enjoy this little goal. Line-breaking pass from Cubarsí to get this move started. Cancelo coming inside as that inverted midfielder, and then over to Lamine Yamal. Then a nice little combination with the back heel from Pedri back to Cancelo, and the cross to Lewandowski at the back post. Had to get it right with the outside of the boot. Well, actually didn't have to get it right because Fermin would have had it with the diving header. But still, as I said, a nice little team goal, and how I hope to remember the Xavi era. And I guess that is kind of how I remember, because there were moments of good football, but it was scattered upon a lot of chaos and nonsense, especially some of the stuff going the other way that we'll talk about in a second. Sevilla were defending in a 5-4-1. They were played through rather easily, as I've already been mentioning. And if Barcelona were a little sharper in the first 20, 25 minutes of the game, then Barcelona would have been up by more than a goal. But Sevilla did well to collapse the white shirts in the central areas, crowding out Lewandowski, Fermin, and Pedri when they would receive it between the midfielders and defenders. So they would allow the Barcelona players, that being Lewandowski, Fermin, and Pedri, who were pushing farther forward, and Lamine Yamal was out there on the wing. But when they would try to drop in the midfielders and defenders, that's when they would collapse. But they did allow those players to drop even deeper, so they have to receive it right at that line between the forwards and the midfielders. So Sevilla were fine just dropping in with the 9 behind the ball that way. Headline 3 is out of our misery. The other side of this, of course, in the Xavi era is the bad moments, and 30th minute defending here by Barcelona, not good. I wrote too easy, because that's what this goal was for Sevilla, too easy. Christensen got spread wide, and neither Pedri or Gundogan dropped in to support that central channel, so Soumaré just able to run right at the back line, and Enesiri playing off of Inigo Martinez's shoulder. Koundé, meanwhile, absolutely playing him onside, and Ter Stegen gets nutmegged. Awful from Ter Stegen as well, who has not had that many marquee saves this whole season. Honestly, he's been better in the leadership and all the intangibles at the back, and even playing with his feet than Inaki Peña was, but this is your number one. This is the guy that's expected to start in 95% of all matches. This is too simple of a goal from Koundé, Ter Stegen, and that midfield getting caught out with their shape. And that's been the case with this Barca backline and whole team this season, especially in the last 6 weeks or so. Just feel like maybe they've turned off Menti a little bit since they were kicked out of the Champions League and lost that El Clasico, and we've seen a lot of goals that were a bit too easy for the opposition. Fortunately, Barcelona were creating chances of their own. An incredible save in the 35th minute by Nealon. Pedri on the doorstep. Fermin with a good delivery to Lewandowski to Pedri for the header. But Nealon gets enough on it to push it over. And then minutes later, Pedri hits the crossbar. This one in transition. Started with Pedri. Fermin took a heavy touch cutting it back, but it fell to Pedri. And if there's one takeaway that I hope follows into next season, it's the combination play between Fermin and Pedri, who haven't really played that often together, with Fermin as that inverted midfielder on the left wing, and then Pedri playing high on the right with an actual defensive midfielder, in this case Christensen. Because remember, when Christensen came in the lineup, Pedri was out of the lineup, so we really haven't seen too much of Fermin and Pedri, because Fermin didn't really start matches here until the second half of the season either. So I'm hoping that that is a sign of things to come with that combination, and yeah, I'm grasping at straws to try to find anything positive taken in next year. 40th minute, Cancelo almost dribbled himself into Ocampos' path and was almost dispossessed and almost conceded a penalty. A lot of almost, as in, is he a defender? Well, he's almost a defender. That's what I would say about Cancelo. Ocampos then bodies Koundé, wins the duel. Cubarsí did well to stand up En-Nesyri so that things didn't get any worse. Good job by Cubarsí. And then Cancelo hit the post before the first half ended. And then Sevilla hit the post too. And then Cancelo had it saved by the keeper. And then Luca Bacchio missed En-Nesyri and went wide instead. So at that point it was 1-1, but it could have been 3-3 after those 2 minutes. Second half starts, Ordo Romeu on for Christensen, and then 48th minute, Koundé, another struggle, but Barca getting numbers back, and not his best game, but overall, again, I'll give a report card on Koundé. He had a really good season, but when it was bad, and yeah, it was bad today. Headline 4 is Fermin and Xavi's legacy. 53rd minute, Fermin getting another chance on goal. The run between the left center back and the central center back, that diagonal run in behind, so good from Fermín Lopez. And I question, does he make that run better than Rafinha and Ferran Torres, the other two guys on the team that in theory make that run, because João Felix does not make that run? We'll see how the offseason goes with those three names in particular, but at this point, at least under Xavi, I think Fermín Lopez is above Ferran Torres on the depth chart, and I think Rafinha just picked up a knock in the last 2 matches, but he had earned the starts as the left winger, and we'll see where that position goes in the offseason as well. This is just my gut guessing that Barcelona will not have the funds for the kind of left winger they're going to want, and if they do bring in a left winger, is he actually going to be better than Fermín Lopez, Ferran Torres, or Rafinha? Because if it's João Felix, we know that he's probably not going to start even under Hansi Flick, a guy that really likes players up top that can press, something that João Felix does not do at a high level. But back to speaking of Fermín Lopez, a player that can press quite a bit. The 2-1 winner, 59th minute, Romeu to Gundogan to Fermín out wide, and Fermín just did so much on his own, dribbling right at Bade and João Lu, cutting to his right and letting it fly. And with that, 8 goals in the league, 11 on the season total, and Fermín, I know I said I was going to do big ideas about Xavi, but he might actually be Xavi's legacy more than any other youth player. Balde, Gabi, Lamine Yamal, Cubarsí, even Fort. All those players, due to Barcelona's financial issues and their talent and how they were seen as prospects in the academy, they might have all gotten their chances under any manager with these circumstances. But I think Fermín Lopez impressed Xavi, and Xavi in particular, in the preseason, and that's what gave him his opportunity. Because I'm not sure if everyone else around the club, the sporting directors and all that, really believed in Fermín Lopez and his future success and what he's already become this season. And I do like the idea that Fermín's success will be linked to Xavi forever. As he gets better and better, we're going to say, hey, Xavi was a manager that believed in Fermín Lopez, and look at how good he's been. And even if this is the best that Fermín Lopez ever gives you, 11 goals in this kind of season, really a remarkable story that in the next few weeks, I'm going to have to go back into history and think about a player that was similar to this with this kind of rise. And headline 5, a Xavi kind of game. The game did kind of end the way that the Xavi era games so often have been. Could Barcelona have won 5-1? Sure. Could that game have ended 3-2 Sevilla? Yeah. 62nd minute, Lewandowski and Lamine Yamal off for Ferran Torres and João Felix. 73rd minute, then Ter Stegen did get a better save here. Pedrosa let it fly with his weaker right foot, but Ter Stegen was up to it. And on the corner kick, En-Nesyri hit the post. Sevilla hitting plenty of posts on the evening, kind of summing up their campaign as well, where they were good enough to stay up right in the middle of the table, but certainly not fighting for Europe this year. 75th minute, offside flag went up, but Koundé still missed one on the doorstep with Torres feeding him, and a rough game against his old club. Maybe he was already on vacation mentally a little bit, or saying hello to some of the friends in Sevilla the night before. I mean, who knows what had happened. Then on came Vitor Roque for the final 15 minutes. Pretty good showing, I thought, from him. He worked hard, reset possession a few times, was a bit more comfortable on the ball as well, so I liked the performance I saw from him. 83rd minute, Sergio Ramos goes down, but only En-Nesyri protests. Good to see that Sergio Ramos knew that wasn't worth selling and Vieira wasn't going to give it to him. 84th minute, Fort in for Cancelo. And 89th minute, Gundogan through ball to Fort, and Fort's cross, which he is a pretty good crosser. We've already seen that. The tools are definitely there. It falls to Koundé, but Koundé off target as he was all day. And then Ramos, at the death, missed a free kick. And I say to Sergio Ramos, have fun here in the U.S. next season, likely. I won't be missing you back in Spanish football again this year. And I think, as I said, this game really summed up the Xavi era. There were some highs, they beat a team that they were supposed to beat, but they also showed great weakness and a lack of continuity at times. And with Xavi leaving, that means there is no continuity in the manager's dugout over this offseason. We'll see who's on their way, and of course, I'm going to have plenty of guests over the coming weeks to talk about that, plus the academy stuff. I got to decide what week I really want to delve into that and come out with all the content I've been working on. And if you don't want to miss any of that, of course, subscribe to the YouTube channel or follow along on the podcast apps or follow me on all social media because I don't fail to post anything on there. And finally, not only thank you to my Patreons, but congratulations to all of you for surviving. No, not necessarily surviving. Barcelona did get more points than they did in the Liga last year, and they did make it to the knockouts of the Champions League. So it was in parts than last year, but they also didn't win the Liga, so there was no trophy. And yeah, that's kind of what this season was. It was a weird season where every success was met with a failure, and you wind up with no trophy at the end of the year. So congratulations to you, because if I could give you a trophy, I would. It'd be the only one you get for watching Barcelona this year. But again, congratulations to you for being with me and sticking with the team this whole time. And I'm hoping there are better days soon ahead. So as always, as I said, after every 5 headlines this season, including that trophy that the Fermín won yesterday. So a big shouts to them again. And as always, Forza Barca.